If you were to, dig just a few feet beneath the grand Catholic royal palaces of modern Madrid, you would find something that basically rewrites European history.
Oh, absolutely. It's wild.
Right, you'd find the massive, sparking flint walls of a ninth century Islamic fortress.
Yeah, it is a complete paradigm shift for anyone who thinks they know the city.
It really is. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today, we are looking at a really fascinating stack of sources. We've got archaeological texts, religious novenas, art history guides, and even modern festival programs.
Quite the eclectic mix.
Definitely. And our mission today is to uncover the forgotten kind of contradictory foundations of Madrid, because you walk on modern pavement, right? You're surrounded by architecture that projects this image of undisputed Spanish royalty and deep Catholicism.
But just inches below your feet is this hidden, layered identity that actually dictates why the city exists in the first place.
Exactly. We are exploring a city whose identity was forged by two seemingly incompatible forces. On one hand, you have its secret origins as an Islamic military outpost, engineered with desert technology.
Right.
And on the other hand, you have the miraculous, deeply earthy life of its beloved Catholic patron saint, Isidore the Farmer. Okay, let's unpack this, because this isn't just a history lesson.
No, not at all.
It's really a look into how the physical and spiritual foundations of a city shape its modern soul.
And to understand that soul, we really have to start with the physical foundations. Because Madrid holds this very specific, often overlooked distinction.
Right, which blew my mind when I read it.
Yeah, it is the only capital city in Europe of Islamic origin. I mean, it wasn't founded by the Romans. It wasn't a Visigoth stronghold. It was founded in the middle of the 9th century by Muhammad the the Emir of Cordoba.
Which, I mean, a frontier fortress makes sense for that era. But the 9th century is a long time before the major Christian reconquests in the south. So who are they so afraid of that they needed to build a massive fortress right in the middle of the Iberian Plateau?
Well, it was actually an issue of internal rebellion.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Umayyad Emirate in Cordoba was dealing with a constantly rebellious city to the south called Toledo.
Okay, got it.
Toledo was wealthy, independent-minded, and basically a constant thorn in the emir's side. So Muhammad had ordered the construction of a settlement originally called Madrid.
Madrid.
Right. It was designed as a hisn, which is a frontier military fortress, and a medina, a small supporting city. Its primary purpose was to be this heavily armed watchtower to keep an eye on Toledo, cut off their supply lines if they rebelled, and act as a buffer against a Christian kingdom slowly pushing down from the north.
Wow, so it was this deeply tense, highly strategic piece of real estate. And the way they constructed it was absolutely brilliant, which brings us to this ancient motto the city held for centuries.
I love this motto.
It's so poetic. On water I was built, my walls are made of fire.
It sounds totally mythological, but it was a literal description of the city's engineering.
Right, so the walls made of fire part refers to the construction materials. They didn't just use standard limestone, they built the fortress walls using massive blocks of flint.
Which is incredible to think about.
Right, so if an attacking army came and struck the walls with their swords or siege weapons in the dark, the extreme friction would literally cause the stone to spark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it would look like the wall was throwing fire back at the attackers. I mean, that is next level psychological warfare.
It was an incredible deterrent. Imagine you are attacking a fortress in the dead of night, and it appears to be physically combating you with sparks.
Terrifying.
Totally. But the first part of that motto, the "on water I was built" part, is where the true genius of the Andalusian founders lies.
Because they didn't build it on a river, right?
Yeah, exactly. They didn't build Madrid right next to the major river in the area, the Manzanares, because the river was down a steep valley. And that is terrible for a defensive fortress.
You want the high ground.
Right.
Yep.
So instead, they built the city on a high promontory directly over a vast network of underground streams.
But they couldn't just, drop a bucket down a hole to sustain an entire military outpost.
No, definitely not.
They had to bring in some highly specialized desert engineering.
What's fascinating here is the mechanism they used to extract that water. They utilized a system called Quanawat.
Right, the Conawat.
Yes. This was a brilliant subterranean aqueduct technology that the Andalusians brought over from places as far away as the Iranian Plateau and the Sahara.
I really want to break down how these actually work for you listening, because it's not just a pipe in the ground. They would dig a mother well deep into a hillside aquifer, basically tapping into underground pools of rainwater and snowmelt. Then they engineered a tunnel with a very precise, incredibly gentle gradient. And this allowed gravity to do all the work of a modern pump, right?
Yeah, pulling water for miles across the dry landscape without the water stagnating.
But also preventing it from flowing so fast that it eroded the tunnel walls.
It required intense mathematical precision. They basically created a subterranean river system, hand-carved through the earth. And they even included vertical ventilation shafts every few dozen meters to allow workers to clear debris and keep the air breathable.
That is just wild.
It really is. This Middle Eastern water technology is the sole reason life, and more importantly agriculture, became possible in the dry, central Spanish plateau.
So they engineer this incredibly lush oasis out of an arid, unforgiving landscape. But history tells us that when you create something that valuable and strategic, someone else is eventually going to take it.
Oh, inevitably.
Which explains why, by the year 1085, the political map flips. The Christian armies of King Alfonso VI push south and conquer the city. And shortly after that conquest, right in that same artificially watered soil, the man who would become Madrid's patron saint is born.
San Isidro the Farmer, or San Isidro Labrador.
Right.
The sources vary slightly on his birth, placing it either around 1070 or 1110. But what they all agree on is his socioeconomic status. He was born to a very, very poor family.
And we need to introduce him and his wife, Saint Maria de la Cabeza, sometimes known as Maria Torribia, because they are not your typical historical saints.
No, they aren't.
I mean, they weren't theologians writing grand treatises, they weren't royalty, and they weren't martyrs. They were working-class, married, peasant laborers.
Yeah, Isidore was a hired farmhand for a wealthy landowner named Juan de Vargas, and Maria worked cleaning local chapels and shrines.
They represented the absolute bottom of the medieval economic ladder. They were just trying to survive in a newly conquered, heavily agricultural frontier town.
Which is a harsh reality.
Definitely. Now, I have to admit, reading these medieval novenas is tough for a modern mind. By today's metrics, and honestly even by medieval agricultural standards, Isidore is committing terrible wage theft.
Oh, totally.
He is an absolute liability to his employer. The sources state he was chronically late for work every single day because he insisted on attending morning mass at various churches across the city.
It's frowned upon in most jobs.
To say the least. And he would also stop his plow mid-furrow just to stand and pray.
Yay.
And to top it off, he would regularly pour out his employer's valuable grain onto the snow to feed wild birds. So how do the original sources justify this without making him sound like a completely irresponsible employee?
Well, it requires a complete departure from our modern hyper-capitalist framework.
Yeah.
We are conditioned by modern hustle culture to view work and economic output as the ultimate measures of a person's worth.
Right.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Catholic rural philosophy of the 12th century operated on an entirely different hierarchy of virtues. Isidore is definitely not the patron saint of the Protestant work ethic.
Not even close. If anything, he's the patron saint of the anti-hustle.
Precisely. The theological worldview of the time posited that the divine economy superseded the human economy, which leads to his most famous miracle.
Yes.
Isidore's coworkers were understandably frustrated that he was showing up late and still drawing a full wage. So they went to their boss, Juan de Vargas, and reported his constant tardiness.
Naturally. So Vargas decides to investigate. He goes out to the fields early the next morning, fully expecting to catch his hired hand playing hooky.
Right.
But instead of an empty field, the sources say he witnesses something stunning. He sees Isidore deep in prayer, but the plowing is still progressing rapidly, because working the fields alongside him are two angels, guiding the plows with teams of pure white oxen.
And the texts explicitly note that they were doing the work of 3 men.
Wow.
The core message here is crucial. Isidore wasn't rewarded for being a diligent, frugal, hyper-efficient laborer. He was rewarded because he completely deprioritized his economic output in favor of his spiritual life.
So the angels covered his shift specifically because he put his soul and his reliance on the divine before his job.
Exactly. It's a complete inversion of how we measure success.
It really is. And that radical reliance on divine providence didn't stop with him. It extended to his marriage. Both Isidore and Maria became conduits for miracles. And what strikes me in the sources is how deeply tied to the earth these miracles are.
Yes, very grounded.
They are domestic, agricultural, and fittingly for Madrid, deeply tied to water.
The miracle of the stew cot is a perfect example of this domestic theology.
Oh, I love this one.
Despite living in extreme poverty, in a time when food insecurity was a daily existential threat, Isidore constantly brought hungry beggars home for dinner.
Which is a beautiful sentiment, but functionally, it puts an immense amount of pressure on the person actually managing the household inventory.
Right, on Maria.
Yeah. Maria always kept a pot of stew on the fire, but one day, Isidore brings home an unusually massive crowd of destitute people. The food completely runs out.
Understand.
Right. Maria pulls him aside and informs him that the pot is empty. And Isidore, completely unbothered, tells her to look again.
And miraculously, the pot is brimming with fresh stew.
It's wild. It's a very localized, very intimate parallel to the biblical miracle of the loaves and fishes.
It really is.
It reminds me of that one couple everyone seems to know, the ones who always have an open door. You can show up unannounced with 3 friends, and somehow, out of thin air, they throw together a feast without breaking a sweat.
Yes.
Isidore and Maria represent that ultimate complementarity. He brings the desperate people in, she facilitates the nourishment, but they both operate on this shared baseline of absolute, unshakable faith that they will be provided for.
And that faith extended from the hearth right back out into the physical landscape.
Yeah.
Because if we look at the art iconography surrounding Isidore, his most potent miracles involve drawing water from the dry earth.
Which, again, for a city whose ancient motto is, "On water I was built," is almost too perfect to be a coincidence. The geography perfectly mirrors the theology.
It really does. There are 2 major water miracles recorded in the art and the Novenas.
Right. The first is the miracle of the spring.
Yes. Vargas, the landowner, is out visiting the fields on a scorching day and complains of terrible thirst. They were in a rocky, parched area.
Not a drop in sight.
Right. So Isidore takes his ox goad, which is the long wooden stick used to steer the plow animals, and he strikes the dry ground with it, heavily echoing Moses in the desert.
And immediately, a fresh, cold spring bursts forth from the dirt.
He is literally tapping into the hidden aquifers of the city.
The very same waters the Islamic engineers sought out.
Exactly. And the second miracle is even more dramatic, and it involves their son, Juan.
This one is intense.
Yeah, their young son falls into a deep well. Knowing the physical depth of Madrid's water table from the Quanawatt engineering, this is a terrifyingly deep drop.
It is a parent's absolute worst nightmare.
But the sources note a distinct lack of panic. Isidore and Maria don't run for ropes or summon the neighbors. They just kneel beside the well and begin to pray. And as they pray, the water level inside the well begins to miraculously rise. It swells higher and higher, basically defying gravity, until it reaches the very brim, safely lifting the living child right back into their arms.
So you have a city physically constructed over hidden underground waters, and its patron saint is famous for commanding the water beneath the earth to rise up and sustain life.
The physical foundation and the spiritual mythology are perfectly intertwined.
It's incredible, but that raises a really fascinating historical problem. Because how does a city with such a deeply layered, culturally complex history actually negotiate its memory? I mean, if you walk around Madrid today, you don't immediately see a bustling Islamic fortress, nor do you see a humble farming village.
No, you see a sprawling European metropolis.
Exactly.
And that visual shift was a highly intentional political act.
Ah, right. Let's talk about 1561.
Yes. In 1561, King Philip II made a monumental decision. He moved the royal court to Madrid, making it the permanent capital of the Spanish Empire. And when you establish a royal court, you need the architecture to project a very specific, unified ideology. Philip II wanted to reinvent Madrid as a grand, undisputed Christian capital.
Right. It's like finding out the Vatican was built directly on top of a Roman gladiator arena. You have 2 completely opposing worldviews occupying the exact same real estate. The king couldn't just leave the ancient Islamic wall standing because architecture is inherently propaganda.
That is the concept of damnatio memoriae, the condemnation of memory.
Right.
The austere flint walls of Madrid were uncomfortable, highly visible reminders of a non-Christian origin. So the city leaders began a systematic campaign of architectural erasure.
They just started tearing it down.
Yep. The Great Mosque of Madrid was torn down, and the Church of Santa Maria de la Almudena was built directly over its foundations.
Wow.
And that eventually evolved into the massive cathedral that stands there today.
And this wasn't just medieval destruction, right? The sources point out that sections of the original Islamic walls were being actively demolished as late as the 19th and early 20th century. City planners just knocked down these 1,000-year-old structures to build viaducts and luxury apartment buildings. They physically buried the old world to legitimize the new one.
But despite that brutal physical erasure, the cultural memory of the city proved incredibly resilient.
You can tear down the flint walls, but you cannot easily pave over the spiritual history of the people.
No, you can't. And you see that survival most vibrantly every single year on May 15th.
The San Isidro Festival.
Yes.
It is a massive citywide celebration honoring a 12th century farmhand who, let's be honest, was terrible at his job.
He really was.
And the visceral details of this festival are incredible. First of all, the entire city engages in a modern pilgrimage. They flock to the prairie of San Isidro in the Carabanchel district,
Right.
and their primary destination. They line up to drink from the saints' miraculous well. 1,000 years later, the water is still central to the city's identity.
It is a profound continuation of the city's relationship with its subterranean landscape.
Yeah.
And the festival itself is a vibrant visual spectacle. The people of Madrid completely abandon modern fashion for the day.
Oh, the traditional outfits are stunning. You have the men dressed as chulipos, wearing a very specific houndstooth cap, a tight vest, a white scarf tied neatly around the neck, and a red carnation pinned to the lapel.
So distinct.
Yeah. And the women dress as chulapas, wearing beautifully fitted polka knot dresses, intricate manila shawls draped over their shoulders, headscarves, and they also wear the signature red carnation. It's basically an absolute sea of polka dots and flowers.
And culinary traditions play a massive role in anchoring this historical memory, too.
The food is legendary. Families sit on the grass eating traditional Madrid stew, which feels like a direct nod to Maria's miraculously full pot.
Absolutely.
They eat galinhas, which are traditional fried viscera. It's deeply authentic working-class food that honors their peasant saint. But the undeniable stars of the show are the donuts.
Oh, the rosquillas.
Yes. And the categorization of these donuts is so charming. You have the fools, the tontas, which are completely unglazed, simple donuts. Then you have the smart ones, the listas, which are dipped in a sweet lemon glaze.
My favorite.
Right. And then you have the Santa Clara donuts, topped with a thick, dry, white meringue. So you grab a smart donut, you listen to the traditional street barrel organs playing on every corner. Wait, let me rephrase. You listen to the organs playing everywhere.
And you watch people dancing the chotis, which is a very traditional, highly stylized partner dance, right there in the streets. It is a living, breathing defiance of the architectural erasure.
So what does this all mean? We started by talking about the hidden foundations of cities, and we've uncovered an incredibly complex tapestry beneath Madrid.
Well, if we look at the journey we've just taken, it's a testament to the layers of human history. We started with an Islamic military outpost, engineered with brilliant Middle Eastern water technology to hold a tense frontier.
Yeah.
We moved to the humble, dusty fields of a devout farmhand whose angels drove his plows while he prayed. And we ended up in the bustling, donut-eating, dancing streets of a modern European metropolis.
It proves that the physical walls of history are fragile. Kings, emperors, and real estate developers can pave over the old mosques and dismantle the flint fortresses, but the true identity of a place doesn't live in the bricks.
No, it doesn't.
It's carried in the soil, it's flowing through the underground water, and most importantly, it's kept alive in the stories and the celebrations of the people who walk those streets.
The true foundation of any city is its collective memory.
Yeah. So we want to leave you listening with a final thought to explore on your own today. Think about the city or the town where you live. What hidden foundations exist right beneath your feet?
That's a great question.
Whether they are forgotten physical ruins buried beneath the asphalt, or the quiet, everyday people from centuries ago who shaped the local culture you experience today. What invisible forces are secretly sustaining the world you walk through every single day?
It certainly changes how you experience your daily environment.
It really does. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the layered soul of Madrid. Until next time, keep looking beneath the surface.